humid. No doubt there are a number of you, certainly those who have been watching the channel for quite a while, who are wondering why we went from a bushcraft channel, basically outdoors, camping and fire starting and that type of thing, woodcraft, to an organic gardening channel. Good question, fair enough. That's not quite the way it is, so let me explain it to you. So, why would we change from a bushcraft channel to what seems to be a gardening channel? Basically, a complete change from where we were going before. And I know that the people who have been around for a long time with this channel have to have realized that there's been quite a difference. But there really hasn't. And the reason I say that is that there's been a lot of talk that I've seen on different channels about people who are going to bug out, who are going to survive, who have their inch bag, their go bag, their whatever it is, doesn't matter what you name it, and they think that they're just going to go out there, out here, and survive if things get really tough. Now, you know, that's a great idea, romantic and all that stuff, but it's not very practical. This is where I live. I'm not here on weekends. I'm not here on weekdays or holidays. Where I live here. This is the life that I have, and this is the far, far north of Ontario, Canada. There's thousands of miles of bush all around me. Most of it's crown land or public land. A lot of it is. So you're free to go there. But the problem is that because the area is so vast, you're going to have an awful hard time collecting everything you need without a great deal of traveling or a great number of people. The problem with that is you're going to burn 500 calories wandering all over the place trying to find a few raspberries to get 100 calories worth of nutrition from them. So what I'm saying here basically is that having lived here all my life, I can probably get about 80% of what I need from the land, but that's mostly because I've had a lifetime of experience. I know the area, I know the land, I know the availability of what's here in terms of what's edible and what isn't, the seasons, all that kind of information that the majority of people won't have if they don't spend much time in any given area. Now I could probably take that 80% and make it 100%. In fact, I know I could, in terms of survival, if things really got to that point. But the thing of it is, you'd have to give up a lot. I would have to give up a lot. Because I don't live near the ocean, I wouldn't have any access to salt. I wouldn't get sugar, coffee. There's so many different things that you would have to give up. Now, that's not going to kill you, but it's certainly going to change your lifestyle and how you live it and how you feel. So as far as those people who are coming up here maybe on weekends, or maybe a couple of weeks holiday, or maybe not even at all, and think that they're going to grab an inch bag and go out there and survive in a shit hits the fan situation, not going to happen. So we have to supplement ourselves with crops. If you're going to go out there and think you're going to survive, you better have a whole lot of seed packets in your inch bag, because you're sure going to need them. 10,000 years ago, the hunter-gatherers gradually converted to crops and farming, and they did that because it was a better life. They didn't go through the plenty and famine periods where they were, you know, always one or the other. They were able to balance out their meals, change their nutrition to a more level area. And bugs, don't forget the bugs. That's going to be something that's a big part of your survival up here, because they will make you miserable. But anyways, back in the southern Mediterranean area, in the Fertile Crescent 10,000 years ago, they gradually went from the hunter-gatherers to the farming, and they did that because it was a better life. So, and the bugs. Did I mention the bugs? Don't forget the bugs. So here we are. We're putting in a garden. We're going to grow some basic crops, just some basic staple crops, potatoes, beets, things that are productive per square foot. You can't get much more produce per square foot than you get from potatoes. Beets, although they're a single beet per plant, you can put them quite close together. So again, they're a high productive area, high productive product for the area that they take up. Things like corn are not. you know, you get 1 or 2 ears of corn, but the corn has to be, you know, 18 inches apart in the rows and a foot apart in the plants and so on and so forth. So that kind of thing's not that productive. Vertical gardening is another thing. You can grow beans or peas or something. You can grow them up a trellis, and you'll get, you know, maybe only a foot or two of garden space, but, you know, they'll grow 7 feet tall, and you'll get a huge amount of produce for a very small amount of garden space. These are the kind of things that you got to keep in mind. So we will be going back to the hunting soon. It's, you know, fall is coming. It's just the end of July, almost August, and it's pretty soon I'm going to have to start going down to the other property, the 160 acres, and start putting together my hunting area and setting up trail cams. So we're going to be switching back to that pretty soon. But I wanted to do these 2 or 3 videos just to show that it's not as simple as everybody seems to think. And, you know, there's a lot more that goes into surviving and wilderness survival, wilderness experience, than just hunting and gathering. It's not that simple. You can hunt, you can fish, you can gather. There's a very good likelihood you'll starve to death over a period of time. Maybe not the first year, maybe not the first month, but, you know, you're going to run into a bad season and you're in trouble. You've got to have this backup supply here, because if you don't, you're just not going to make it. So keep that in mind, folks, when you're putting together your inch bag or whatever your thoughts are for bugging out, if that's where you're going with your ideas. Take enough extra things with you, like seed packets. You're definitely going to need them. As I've shown here, I've already extended the garden here. I've doubled its, tripled its size. It's now about 24 by 40. It's not turned deeply like I did with the spade. I used the tiller, which did a pretty good job. It cut through even some of the roots and so on, but it's pretty tough stuff. So I'm unloading some of this wet stuff here. It's not wet, but it's not as dry and nice as the other one was. And I'm going to unload about half of it here so that I can spread it onto this new area that's been turned. And then I'll till it again and get it to turn into the soil a little bit, and I'll leave that till spring. And then in spring, I'll probably put another top coat on it and just sort of rake it in a little bit, and that should be ready to plant, along with some bone meal and so on. As you can see, my horseradish is very happy. My potatoes are out of control. I've hilled them up now 5 times, buried them right up to within inches of with about 2 inches, and still I just can't keep up with them. So I think I was only mostly an experiment anyway, so I think I'm just going to let them go. These are my very rare peas, and as you can see, they're climbing up the pea sticks very nicely. They had flowers on them. There's some flowers right there. So they're doing well. So I'm not really looking for a crop, as I've said before, but I should be able to replenish my supply of seeds fresh. I like to get them, all my very rare seeds, freshened up every couple of years or so. Generally they'll last longer, at least most things will, but why take the chance? As you can see, my compost pile is growing potatoes. When I had a few potatoes that had started to sprout, there was a couple in the bottom, there was about 4 of them in the bottom of the bag that had gone kind of mushy and actually moldy. So I picked them out, set them aside. They had some eyes on them, but they just were not very nice. So I pitched them in the compost pile. Didn't cut them up, didn't do anything for them, just put them in the compost pile, and they eventually got buried a little bit. And look at this. They're growing like crazy. Now I'm just going to take my shovel and chop these up and cut them down. I don't need potatoes coming out of here, and I don't want to disturb my compost, you know, in another month or more in order to try and get those few potatoes that might be in there. But it just shows you how rich this stuff is. That those taters, they just love it. They're growing wherever they can. So what I'm going to do is take these are the grassier parts. So I'm going to hack down those taters, and I'm going to put the grass, invert it upside down so the roots are up right there, and I'm going to start to build this side of the pile up a little bit. It's going to take a while. So in the meantime, the rest of the compost manure that's in the trailer will go on this side, just straight compost, or the manure. As I get leaves and grass and so on, I'll put a about 2 or 3 inches of that material, whatever that material is here. Then I can shovel a bit more manure on top of it, and leaves and manure and leaves and so on and so forth, until I can build it up to about the height of the crates here, of the pallets. When that happens, I'll leave that to steep until fall. I will turn this pile so that the top here gets to the bottom, and I'll just turn the whole pile over. What that does is it just mixes it up, it helps to re-aerate it, and it also takes the stuff on the bottom, which is pretty much composted by that time, and brings it to the top, and the stuff on the top, which is really not composting very much at all, will then be on the bottom. And I'll leave that till spring. So in the spring, this side of the compost pile should have a pretty, well, it should be filled right to the top with a very good quality compost, finer in compost than what the straight manure is, because there'll be grass and leaves and whatever else that I can put in there will be in it. So that's the way the compost pile is going to build, and we'll carry on with that now. Gardening is fun. It's a good thing to do. It's fresh air, it gives you excellent quality produce, and it's an enjoyable way to get outside. Don't stress it. This stuff, people didn't invent composting. Composting is going to happen. It doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what you put in there, as long as it's not plastic or something, but it doesn't matter what vegetable material type material you put in there, it's going to rot. And it's going to rot whether you want it to or not. So just think of all the things that you don't want to have go rusty and rotten, and see how true that is. The only thing a composter can do is to help guide the action. We can speed it up a little bit, because it would take Mother Nature years to make a pile 5 feet tall. We can do that in a month or less. Also, we can select different materials to put in there, a combination of materials that might not be everywhere in nature. For example, in certain areas of nature, there's going to be a deciduous forest, and you're not going to get anything but leaves and so on like that, and some other minor trace elements that get into there. So you're not going to have that balance to compost. As a person who's making their own compost pile, we can take leaves, we can take grass, we can take clippings from something else, we can take straw, any number of different things, and the more variety we put into it, the more different variety of nutrients and elements that we can get out of it. So that's really all we can do. It's going to rot whether we do it or not. All we can do, we can't control that. All we can do is just give it a little guide to get it a little bit more balanced and a little faster in the way it works. So enjoy it, just get it done, and now let's go on and get that trailer moved a little bit, and I'll bring it over here, and I'll put the regular manure on this side, so that as I put more leaves on there and such, I'll just layer it up. So I'm going to do that now. Well, I hope this has helped a little bit, give a little bit more of a balanced idea of what it's really like. I know that most of the people that make these videos mean well. They try to present a pretty accurate picture. Some of them perhaps don't have as much experience. It's really it's really not quite as simple as it seems. There's, like everything in life, there's always more to it. I hope you've gained something from this, maybe at least a little bit of respect for what you've got ahead of you, if it ever comes to that, if you're thinking that you might do that someday, or even just move out here to live. It's it's a different lifestyle for sure. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. I always enjoy watching your comments, reading them. I'm at the cabin now where it's an off-grid here, so I don't have access to the internet even. I don't get cell signal or anything here. So it's going to be difficult for me during this summer to keep up with the comments, but I'm going to do my best, and I know in another few weeks when the fall comes, we get back into the hunting and so on, that I'll be having more opportunity to stay in contact with everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you down the trail. A small further update. This is a 1947 Fergus TEA T20. It's a nice little old tractor, little 4-cylinder gas. It runs actually pretty good, so I'm restoring that. In the meantime, I'm going to be using it certainly. The reason I chose this one over some of the little Fords is that this one has a full 3-point hitch with hydraulics. And I don't believe all the Fords do. There's 2 ends, 8 ends, and 9 ends. I don't know that much about them, but I know not all of them have the hydraulic setup and the PTO, and this one does. It's a little rough, but it's got brand new tires on it, which is probably worth more than what I paid for the tractor. But and it runs well, so I'll be working on this to make it prettier, make it, repaint it, and so on. But in the meantime, it's a good working little tractor.